My intestines used to feel like an abandoned warehouse, echoey, drafty, and frankly, a little spooky. I was eating, but the vibes were off. The local residents, my native bacteria, were listless, sitting around playing solitaire on overturned crates. I decided to gentrify the neighborhood. I took a probiotic. It was like a bus pulled up and unloaded 50 billion friendly hippies. They didn't sign a lease, and they certainly don't pay rent, but they are the best squatters I've ever had. They immediately started hanging tapestries of mucosal health and lighting incense of metabolic balance. "Hey man," one of the lactobacillus bacteria said to a grumpy native microbe, "you look stressed. Have some serotonin." Now, my gut isn't an empty warehouse. It's a bustling commune. Sure, it's crowded, but the rent is free, the energy is good, and they've done wonders with the place. I have a tendency to look at a large meal, say a bean burrito the size of a human infant, and panic. My stomach looks at it and whispers, "I can't do this alone, Barbara." We both know the aftermath, the sluggishness, the bloat, the regret. We are not equipped for heavy lifting. That's when I call in the special ops team, the digestive enzymes. They drop into my stomach like culinary ninjas dressed in black turtlenecks. They don't ask questions, they just work. With swift, microscopic katanas, they approach the daunting macronutrients. Chop, slice, dice. They turn a complex protein chain into a bite-sized peace offering that my small intestine can actually handle. Thanks to their covert operation, I can eat the burrito and leave the table feeling like a ninja myself rather than a parade float. My microbiome has a lot of emotional baggage. It holds on to things, stress, sugar. That one time I ate a stale bagel in 2018, it needed to talk to someone, it needed professional help. But therapy is expensive, so instead I bought a jar of artisanal sauerkraut. Fermented foods are the funky-smelling therapists of the dietary world. I open the jar and the scent hits me, a pungent reminder that growth is sometimes a little sour. I take a forkful, and as the cabbage travels down, it calls a group session. "Okay, everyone, gather round," the kimchi announces to the gut bacteria. "Let's process our trauma. Let's digest our feelings." It's a funk-filled intervention. My microbes cry, they hug, they release the gas of their past mistakes, apologies to my roommates, and we all move forward, healed by the power of brine. I love tofu. Tofu is the soft, sensitive poet of the protein world who cries at sunsets. But sometimes I need someone stronger. I need someone who has their life together. I need tempeh. Tempeh is the cool Indonesian cousin who shows up on a motorcycle. He's firm, he's nutty, he's been through the fermentation process, so he's cultured, but he's solid as a rock. While tofu is falling apart in the frying pan, complaining about the heat, tempeh holds his shape. "I got this," he says, offering me a complete protein profile and a hearty texture. He brings zero family drama to the plate. He doesn't need to be coddled or pressed. He just shows up, does the heavy lifting for my hunger, and tastes delightfully like earth and dependability. There are days when the world feels cold and sharp, like walking on Lego bricks barefoot. On those days, water is too thin and coffee is too jagged. I need a liquid that understands the complexity of the human soul. I need miso. I dissolve the paste into hot water and watch the cloudy nebulas swirl. It's the galaxy in a mug. Taking that first sip is like receiving a hug from a savory ghost. It wraps around my insides with an umami embrace that says, "Shh, it's okay." It's salty, yes, miso has a salty sense of humor, so we have to be careful not to raise the blood pressure too high. But in that moment, the salt feels like the tears I don't have to cry because the soup is doing it for me. It comforts my spirit, warms my hands, and reminds me that even in a murky suspension, there is profound flavor. There was a time when my nerves felt less like a sophisticated electrical network and more like a frayed phone charger I was afraid to touch. I wasn't craving a steak exactly, I was craving the sensation of being fully plugged in. I felt static in the air, I felt like a radio tuned between stations. Then I invited B12 back into my life. He's the outsider at the vegan dinner party, not a plant, but a friendly bacteria that crashes on the couch. And he is essentially my neurological bodyguard. Taking my B12 felt like wrapping my raw nerves in velvet. The static cleared. The moodiness, which usually hovered around me like a low-grade fog, lifted to reveal a sunny mental landscape. It turns out, I didn't miss the meat. I missed the feeling of my own synapses firing on all cylinders. Now, I have the energy to actually face Monday morning, or at least the energy to make coffee without weeping, which is basically the same thing. I used to identify spiritually with a helium balloon that had been sitting in a corner for 3 weeks, wrinkly, hovering just above the carpet and utterly devoid of lift. My blood was tired, my ambition was tired. I would try to watch my favorite show, but by the time the opening credits rolled, I was already drifting into a nap that offered no rest. I needed the superstar. I needed iron. Rebuilding my iron stores felt like slowly reinflating my soul. It wasn't an overnight miracle, but a steady repressurizing of my existence. Color returned to my cheeks, replacing the Victorian ghost chic I had accidentally cultivated. Suddenly, I had the stamina to make it through an entire season finale. I could gasp at the plot twist without needing to lie down immediately after. I was no longer floating aimlessly near the floor. I was tethered, buoyant, and fully awake for the drama. We all know the feeling of a good hair day. You walk down the street, and the wind hits you just right, and for a fleeting moment, you believe you could run for mayor or perhaps fight a bear. I wanted my skeleton to feel like that. I wanted my bones to have that same swagger. Before calcium, I felt fragile, like a teacup in a mosh pit. I worried that a strong breeze or a stern look might shatter me. But as I fortified my diet, I felt a shift in my internal architecture. Calcium became the guardian of my frame, turning my chalky apprehensions into marble certainty. It's a quiet kind of strength, knowing that your femurs are up to the task of carrying you around. Now, I walk with a structural integrity that matches my best blow dry. I am sturdy, I am supported, I am ready to stand tall, even on days when my hair decides to be humble. My brain used to be a storm chaser. 1 minute it was sunny, the next a torrential downpour of emotion because I dropped a spoon. I would scroll desperately through videos of kittens falling off sofas, hoping for a dopamine hit to level me out. It was an inefficient system. I needed better fuel. I needed the plant-powered piece of ALA. I started sprinkling chia and flax like magical fairy dust. The effect was smoother than the highest resolution streaming video. The omega-3s oiled the squeaky hinges of my mood. The jagged peaks of anxiety softened into rolling hills of "it's going to be okay." It soothed me from the inside out, providing a sustainable calm that a 15-second clip of a cat in a shark costume simply couldn't match. My brain stopped buffering and started streaming serenity in 4K. I live in a place where the winter sky is the color of old dishwater. For months, the sun is just a rumor, a myth told by people in California. My mood would usually match the meteorology, gray, damp, and overcast. I was a solar-powered device living in a basement. I finally accepted that I couldn't control the weather, but I could control the capsule. Taking vitamin D felt like swallowing a tiny, encapsulated summer afternoon. My brain is an overachiever. It doesn't just think, it sprints. It likes to train for the Olympics of worry at 11:30 p.m. I needed a sedative, but the gentle kind. I needed GABA. GABA, derived from fermented rice, is the chillest neurotransmitter in the game. I take it, and it feels like a soft, heavy quilt being draped over my racing thoughts. It walks into the noisy room of my mind and doesn't yell for silence. It just starts singing a lullaby. Hush now, it croons to my anxiety. The font choices were fine. It's the biochemical equivalent of a mother rocking a cradle. The sprinting stops, the track lights go out, my brain stops trying to break records, and finally, blessedly, decides to just break for a nap. Insomnia loves to put on a one-man show in my bedroom. The curtain rises at midnight, and the main character is me, replaying an awkward conversation from 2011. It's a tragedy. It's a farce. And the audience, my eyes, is held captive, staring at the ceiling. I hired a stage manager. I hired Melatonin. Melatonin wears all black and a headset. He walks onto the stage of my consciousness with a clipboard. "Okay, folks, that's a wrap," he announces calmly. He starts dimming the lights. He cuts the microphone on my internal monologue. Insomnia tries to do an encore, but Melatonin just pulls the velvet curtain shut. "Go home," he tells the thoughts. "Show's over." My eyelids get heavy, the theater goes dark, and I finally get to exit the venue and drift into the parking lot of dreams. Some problems require a lawyer, some require a spreadsheet, but most of my problems just require hot water and dried leaves. When the world feels too sharp, too loud, or too fast, I turn on the kettle. Drinking chamomile is like receiving a liquid hug from a flower that thinks you're doing a great job. I hold the warm mug in my hands, the universal gesture for I am taking a moment. The steam rises, smelling of apples and earth. I take a sip, and the warmth travels down to my stomach, dissolving the knots. It's steeped in giggles. It's steeped in forgiveness. Peppermint is the cool aunt who rubs my back. Chamomile is the grandmother who knits me a sweater. They don't solve the tax audit or the traffic jam, but they make the inside of my body feel like a soft, safe room where those things can't reach me. I looked at my shelf. It was full of bottles. Magnesium for the nerves, B12 for the energy, turmeric for the joints. I was a walking, talking health food store, and yet I still felt a little hungry. Not for food, but for satisfaction. I realized I was missing the most important nutrient of all. I started taking a daily dose of gratitude. It's the only supplement that is 100% vegan, gluten-free, sugar-free, and cost-free. I wake up and swallow 3 small appreciations. The sun is out, my cat is purring. I have coffee. It doesn't taste like anything, but the after effects are profound. It feeds the part of me that is always starving for more. It settles the emotional stomach. It tells my heart, look at what we have. It is enough. It turns a regular Tuesday into a good Tuesday, and unlike the other 99 items on this list, I never have to worry about running out. I used to think I had an identity crisis, but then I met Tofu. Tofu wakes up every morning having absolutely no idea who it is going to be, and it is completely at peace with that. Is it a scramble? Is it a cheesecake? Is it a fake chicken nugget? Tofu just shrugs and says, yes, and Tofu is the master of improv comedy in my kitchen. I open the package, draining the water, and toss the white block into the pan. What's the scene? Tofu asks. Spicy stir-fry, I yell. Tofu immediately gets into character, absorbing the soy sauce and ginger like a method actor. It never complains about typecasting. It teaches me flexibility. If a block of bean curd can be anything it wants to be with just a little marinade and confidence, then maybe I can handle being a functional adult today. I wanted to get swole. I wanted gains, but I didn't want chicken. I wanted something that sounded like heavy metal music. I wanted seitan. Seitan is wheat that went to the gym, got ripped, and came back to drop the mic on the protein debate. I was cooking a stir-fry when my grandmother walked in. What's for dinner? She asked. Hail seitan, I cheered, flexing my bicep. She crossed herself and backed out of the room slowly. It's wheat gluten, Grandma, I shouted, but the damage was done. Seitan is misunderstood. It's tough, chewy, and dense, perfect for the gym selfie lifestyle. It makes me feel strong, even if I have to whisper its name at family gatherings to avoid an exorcism. Sometimes eating feels like a chore. Fork, mouth, chew, repeat. It's tedious. I needed a snack that required participation. I needed a snack that cheered me on. I ordered the edamame. They arrived steaming in their little green sleeping bags. To eat them, you have to pop them out. Pop. 1 bean. You are worthy, it seemed to say. Pop. Another bean. You are doing great. Pop. Excellent technique. Edamame are tiny, green positive affirmations. The physical act of popping them into my mouth felt like accepting small awards for simply existing. By the time I had a pile of empty pods, I felt accomplished. I had successfully liberated 50 soybeans, and my self-esteem was fuller than my stomach. My gut microbiome loves a good story. It loves a long, complex narrative with twists and turns. White rice is a short story. Sugar is a tweet. But black beans? Black beans are a Russian novel. They are the fiber-rich storytellers of the pantry. I ate a bowl of chili, and the beans settled into my colon to begin the reading. Chapter 1, the fiber announced. My gut bacteria gathered around, rapt with attention. They applauded, they cheered, and yes, sometimes their applause was audible to the outside world. Toot. Shh, I whispered to my abdomen. Keep it down. But you can't silence art. The beans were weaving a tale of digestive health so moving that my insides were giving it a standing ovation. It's a little embarrassing in public, but hey, at least the critics down there are happy. I looked at my bank account. It wept. I looked at my nutritional needs. They were demanding. I felt stuck between a rock and an expensive protein bar. I needed financial advice. I needed a therapist. I opened the pantry and found a bag of lentils. Lentils are the sensible shoes of the food world. They aren't flashy. They don't have an Instagram account. I poured them into a pot. Listen, the lentils said in a calm, reasonable voice. We cost pennies. We cook in 20 minutes. We have iron. We have fiber. Why are you complicating this? They are the economics 101 professors of my diet. Eating them makes me feel fiscally responsible and emotionally grounded. They remind me that I don't need truffle oil to survive, I just need a humble legume and a pinch of salt. My anxiety about money fades with every bite of the thick, earthy stew. I am solvent, I am fed, I am smart. I'm now actively defining the scope of the narratives. I'm focusing on crafting engaging first-person perspectives for each nutrient. The challenge lies in making each description both informative and creatively compelling, aiming for a consistent novelistic style. I'm now actively focusing on the first nutrient, vitamin B12. I'm building a soft, novel-style first-person narrative with humor, centered on emotional well-being. I envision B12 as a quirky friend who solves the character's disconnected feeling. I'm working with a missing meat energy joke. I intend to focus and push further. Right now, I'm focusing on iron. The core concept is about feeling deflated versus energized, like a balloon. I'm aiming for a humorous angle centered on everyday experiences, such as having enough stamina to binge-watch TV shows. The deflated balloon metaphor seems perfect. Also, I am thinking that calcium could be like sturdy self-confidence. I am connecting physical structure to emotional stability. I'm presently building out the omega-3 fatty acids narrative. I'm aiming to capture emotional turbulence and the soothing effect of this nutrient. I'm leaning into humor by comparing its benefits to more common, though less effective mood boosters, like scrolling online. I see calcium as conferring a confident swagger, like when your bangs sit perfectly. I am also working on vitamin D, where it will manifest as a literal sunshine capsule to combat seasonal gloom. I'm now drafting the vitamin D narrative, envisioning it as a literal sunshine capsule for a solar-powered entity stuck in a basement. The silver lining cliché gets a very literal twist. I'm aiming for a soft, novel tone that's introspective, cozy, and gently self-deprecating. I will also be working to gently incorporate elements of previous character drafts. I'm focusing on the first-person perspective, staying true to my prior constraints. I'm now integrating the hair day confidence into the calcium narrative, which I think will land really well. Also, I will be leveraging the cat video comparison within omega-3, which I believe is a great fit. Finally, I will incorporate the silver linings concept to enhance the vitamin D characterization. There was a time when my nerves felt less like a sophisticated electrical network and more like a frayed phone charger I was afraid to touch. I wasn't craving a steak exactly, I was craving the sensation of being fully plugged in. I felt static in the air. I felt like a radio tuned between stations. Then I invited B12 back into my life. He's the outsider at the vegan dinner party, not a plant but a friendly bacteria that crashes on the couch. And he is essentially my neurological bodyguard. Taking my B12 felt like wrapping my raw nerves in velvet. The static cleared. The moodiness, which usually hovered around me like a low-grade fog, lifted to reveal a sunny mental landscape. It turns out I didn't miss the meat. I missed the feeling of my own synapses firing on all cylinders. Now, I have the energy to actually face Monday morning, or at least the energy to make coffee without weeping, which is basically the same thing. I used to identify spiritually with a helium balloon that had been sitting in a corner for 3 weeks, wrinkly, hovering just above the carpet and utterly devoid of lift. My blood was tired, my ambition was tired. I would try to watch my favorite show, but by the time the opening credits rolled, I was already drifting into a nap that offered no rest. I needed the superstar, I needed iron. Rebuilding my iron stores felt like slowly reinflating my soul. It wasn't an overnight miracle, but a steady repressurizing of my existence. Color returned to my cheeks, replacing the Victorian ghost chic I had accidentally cultivated. Suddenly, I had the stamina to make it through an entire season finale. I could gasp at the plot twists without needing to lie down immediately after. I was no longer floating aimlessly near the floor. I was tethered, buoyant, and fully awake for the drama. My muscles are drama queens. After a long day of pretending to be a productive human, they bunch up in my shoulders like a grumpy committee, protesting every tiny task. "We are tight," they scream. "We are stressed." They needed a professional. They needed magnesium. Magnesium is the gentle but firm yoga instructor of my biochemistry. I take my glycinate, and it glides into my system like a perfectly executed downward dog. "Relax, darling," Magnesium whispers, stretching my tense fibers. "You are safe. You are supported." It doesn't just release the physical tension, it releases the emotional grip I have on the day. My shoulders drop, my jaw unclenches. I feel my entire being sigh, a deep, satisfied exhale. It's like someone finally turned off the anxiety-inducing elevator music and replaced it with soft ambient chimes. There are days when I feel less like a person and more like a drooping succulent that forgot to water itself. My limbs feel heavy, my energy is flagging, and my internal fluids are clearly having a party without me. I'm wilting. I'm dehydrated. I needed a diplomat to negotiate my internal water situation. I needed potassium. Potassium is the quiet, unassuming ambassador of hydration. He doesn't make a fuss. He just subtly rebalances the treaties between my cells. He ensures that sodium isn't getting too bossy and that water knows where to go. Let's keep the peace, folks, potassium murmurs to my electrolytes. He's the banana-flavored UN peacekeeper. Suddenly, my cells perk up. My muscles stop feeling like sandbags. I am no longer a wilting houseplant. I am a thriving, properly watered botanical masterpiece, ready to photosynthesize my way through the afternoon. I always had a tiny, nagging fear that the calcium I so diligently consumed was a bit of a rebel. I imagined it wandering around my bloodstream, looking at my arteries and thinking, "Ooh, shiny, let's build a little mineral fortress right here." That is not where calcium belongs. I didn't want my arteries to become tiny calcified art installations. I needed a navigator. I needed K2. K2, specifically from the fermented magic of natto, is the no-nonsense GPS for calcium. I take my tiny soft gel, and I can almost hear the stern robotic voice in my internal system recalculating. Calcium detected in aorta, turn right onto Femur Avenue, bones are straight ahead. K2 guides the minerals with precision, ensuring they don't get lost or develop any rogue architectural aspirations. Now, I rest easy, knowing my calcium is on the straight and narrow, building my bones into fortresses, not my arteries into concrete pipes. My outlook on life can sometimes be a little blurry. When things go wrong, I see red, or more accurately, I see a lot of dark, squiggly lines that imply doom. My vision needed an upgrade, not just for seeing small print, but for seeing the optimistic perspective. I started eating a lot of carrots, pumpkins, and sweet potatoes. My skin developed a subtle, healthy glow, as if I had a personal sunset happening on my face. Beta-carotene is the positive affirmation photographer of my retina. It processes the light and then enhances the colors. "Focus on the joy," it whispers, sharpening the edges of my appreciation. It not only boosts my literal night vision, saving me from stubbing my toe on my own pessimism, but it also filters out the gloom. The squiggly lines of stress get smoothed out, and I see the bright side, literally. Even when life gives me lemons, they now look particularly vibrant and juicy. My skin is temperamental. It flares up when I'm stressed, it gets red when I'm embarrassed, and it generally acts like a moody teenager. It needed therapy. It needed a cool, calming presence that could soothe the drama without judgment. It needed vitamin E. Vitamin E, the tocopherol collective, is the skin's peacekeeper. It glides into my dermal layers like a favorite song rediscovered on a dusty playlist. It's comforting, it's familiar,